Earl Bedford was a multi-instrumentalist and producer, hired early on by Bobby Robinson of Enjoy Records to be a session musician on his rap recordings. Earl, better known as the legendary Pumpkin, played on records like Heartbeat by the Treacherous Three, The Love Rap and the New Rap Language by Spoonie G and the Treacherous Three, Rockin' It and Its Magic by the Fearless Four, Rappin' and Rockin' the House by the Funky 4+1, and the list goes on. Many of the beats on these records will become the backdrop for early hip-hop live performances and became breakbeats in themselves, with DJs grabbing 2 copies to spin behind their MCs as they played the live chitlin circuit of clubs and playgrounds in rap's infancy. In the early 80s, when the Disco 4 left Enjoy Records and went to Profile Records, they took Pumpkin along with them. This marked the second time that Pumpkin became a session producer for a label, and the actual producer in rap music was not even a thing as of yet. On the heels of his solo instrumental record King of the Beat in 1983, Pumpkin was summoned by Profile Records CEO Cory Robbins to make an all-star record called Here Comes That Beat. The song consisted of Pumpkin's drum programming and production, along with the singing of Fly Tyrone, and the all-star lineup of the Fresh 3 MCs, Dr. Jeckyll and Mr. Hyde, and the Disco 4. Here Comes That Beat would not only reach the Hot R&B Billboard charts, it stayed for 7 weeks and peaked at number 57, a major accomplishment for an underground rap record at the time. Here Comes That Beat would also make history, becoming the template for the modern-day Posse Cut. This is Jayquan, the hip-hop historian, and it's my honor to sit down with Cory Robbins, founder of Profile Records, members of the Fresh 3 MCs, Dr. Jeckyll and Mr. Hyde, the Disco 4, and Fly Tyrone, to discuss the making of Here Comes That Beat and the legacy of Pumpkin.
Yeah, Pumpkin definitely put me on. He was the first one to put me on wax. And so growing up in the Bronx, right, and being part of the whole sort of, the grassroots of hip hop coming up, we had our little crews, right, in hip hop, and in the northeast side of the Bronx, you had to play in this place called the Valley, right, and the Valley was like the Apollo for hip hop. Like you sometimes you don't make it out of there alive, right? And wow. You got bullets going off if you're not good. You got people cheering if you're good. And I had this crew called the Ultimate Four, and we started our thing, and we did really good. So we were a popular group in the area. One of the MCs, his name was Tito, called him Centipede. That was his stage name. He lived right next door to Pumpkin.
Okay.
Literally right next door. And so Pumpkin would play drums, right, in his garage, and we would visit Tito, and we'd practice, and Pumpkin would be playing, and we never bothered Pumpkin because he did his thing and we were doing our thing. But the interesting thing was, I used to play in my garage, DJ. My brother and I would DJ in the garage, and Pumpkin happened to be driving by one day, and he knew me from the Valley connection, playing at the Valley. And he stops his car, and I remember he was driving this precious coffee brown 98 with like a beige leather top. That was Pumpkin, right? And it was just a beautiful car, right? Yes. And if he wasn't doing what he did with drums, I'd probably think he was selling drugs, but he wasn't. Right, Pumpkin didn't do that, but he was just he had come off the Treacherous Three and Spoonie and and all that stuff, and he was getting paid, and he was already on Profile. He had a contract with Profile.
Pumpkin, he was there basically from the beginning. Mm-hmm. I got to be honest with you, I don't recall how we met Pumpkin, mm-hmm. but we really became good friends with him. We used to go to his house, and he had his drum set up, and a lot of this stuff was not drum machines. It was Pumpkin playing live on the drums. And like, wow, I'm really trying to figure out how we met up. It might have been through Bobby Robinson, to be honest with you. But Pumpkin was a very creative dude. Like, he was a little nerdy. I keep it 100 with you.
Sure,
but
sure.
he fitted right in. Like I said, Pumpkin was that dude. Pumpkin was Enjoy at one time, because most of the artists that was under Enjoy, Pumpkin did the music. And then the other crazy thing was, that was a blessing, was when most of the artists left. Like, you had some guys go to Sugar Hill, which we decided not to. We decided to go to Profile. So when we went to Profile, we brought Pumpkin with us. And from that point on, Pumpkin, he expanded and started doing other things for Cory Robbins, Profile, Jeckyll and Hyde, and a variety of different hip hop groups back then.
He had a contract with Profile. And so he stopped in and he goes, "Hey, I've seen you at the Valley, and I know you know Tito, right, from the Ultimate Four. I know you guys are in the same crew. Listen, I got a record that I'm working on, and I'd love for you to come scratch." I'm 17 years old, Jayquan, right? And I go, "Listen, you got to talk to my mom." Right? And my mom's upstairs. It's like 4:00 in the afternoon. And I mean, I remember that because my dad wasn't home. So anytime before 5, it was just mom in the house. So he talks to mom. And I don't know if you knew this, but my family's from Cuba. And so Errol, or Pumpkin, he spoke Spanish. Right. So he went upstairs and spoke to my mom in Spanish and basically said, "Listen, your son has talent. I make records, I'm under contract with this big company. I'd love to take your son into the studio." And my mom said, "Listen, just get him back by this time. Make sure no drugs, no drinking. I want him back the same way he left. And if not, I want to know where you live, and I will call the police." and so we went to the studio, right? And that was the recording of King of the Beat. Right. And so the whole way down, and I didn't know Errol that well. The whole way down, he explains to me, his career, and this is the one record that they're paying him to actually make about himself. He was always in the background, providing beats, selling beats, right? Sort of, never in the forefront. He goes, "This is my first chance to be in the forefront, be my own band, and I want you to be a part of that." And I'm 17, and I'm like, really? Like, this is cool. And so we go to the studio, and he takes out the Lindrum, and he starts linning, right? And I'm shaking my head, and I'm thinking, this, what am I going to do with the scratch? And I pull out an old Spoonie, and I grab Spoonie's whistle, and Errol goes, "I love that sound."
You say you're 1 for the trouble, 2 for the time. Come on, y'all, let's rock the.
So I do Spoonie, and the Spoonie thing becomes famous through King of the Beat. Errol loved it. And so later on, like the next year, about 9 months later, he says, "Hey, we're bringing the All-Stars in." And he goes, "I want Spoonie, that Spoonie whistle that you did for King of the Beat. I want that whistle on Here Comes That Beat." And I did that on Here Comes That Beat.
Back then, and it's crazy, 30 years later, I'm telling the story. Only the Disco 4 knew what happened, and Pumpkin. That Scratch on Galaxy thing was originally supposed to be me. But what happened was that one of the parties that we gave, all right, I'm gonna keep it 100. It was a shootout.
Okay.
And it was crazy because I got a nervous condition after that, because I was at the door when everything went on, and this guy named Cory, he shoots at the floor. The bullet hits the floor and ricochet and just missed me by inches. Wow. So from that point on, it's like, when I got on the turntables, like after that, it's like, honestly, it took me a long time for me to start DJing again, because it got to a point where the guys started making jokes, calling me DJ Shake a Lot.
Oh, wow.
Wow. Yeah. Greg and them, they had jokes,
Sure.
So what happened was, it was during the time when the Pumpkin and the All-Star joint was being made. And like, they put me on the spot. I tried it. I couldn't do it every time, my hand would shake and then the needle would jump. So I don't remember who actually reached out to because Galaxy was Jeckyll and Hyde DJ, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Right. So I guess it went through Andre or one of those guys. They got him in. He came in and he basically he did a good job.
Yeah, he did. It was good.
Yeah, that was supposed to be. It was supposed to be scratch on Albie, but like I said, this is the first time. Like the Disco 4, all the members know. I don't know if Jeckyll and Hyde remember what happened.
Here Comes That Beat, Pumpkin and the Profile All-Stars. Yeah. Where did that idea come about? What's the genesis of that? And why was Run DMC not on Here Comes That Beat?
Yeah, good question. Getting all the rappers on one record was my idea. I don't remember why we didn't get Run DMC. Maybe they were too big to be on this. I don't know if they were even in town. Yeah, good question. I don't know for sure why they weren't on it, if we didn't think they should be on it, or if they weren't available.
It was 84. It was 84. They were on fire in 84, so they might not have been able to do it. Like you said, might not have been available.
They could have been out of town. I don't know, but I think we had enough rappers at that point, and everybody got a verse. And I mean, who's on it? Fresh 3 MCs, Disco 4,
and Jeckyll and Hyde.
Oh, Jeckyll and Hyde. Yeah, that was like, yeah, those were all people that were very into the idea. They all wanted to do it. I don't know why Run DMC. That's a great question. I can't say for sure why they weren't on it. I don't know if we asked them, or I don't remember.
Okay.
And so Here Comes That Beat was before King of the Beat or after?
It was after.
Okay, so King of the Beat was the beat of some other big record. We took that beat and made King of the Beat.
Yeah, it had the little like
Moments of Love or whatever. It was that.
It was similar.
Yeah, I think it was Moments of Love. I forget who did that record, but it was like that.
All the Noise did Moments of Love. Yeah.
So I think that's where the beat idea came from for King of the Beat. And then, he came up with Pumpkin, I'm King of the Beat. And, it wasn't a big hit, but it did, it did a little bit. And then, I don't know, I forget exactly how, I don't know how the idea came up of like, let's get all the rappers together and take a beat like that and just put everybody on it. And so he did.
Would you say that one did well? That single did well? Here Comes That Beat?
Yeah, I don't think it was huge. I think it, it's kind of legendary now, but I don't think it even did anywhere near 100,000. Like that was kind of a good 12-inch would do 100,000. I don't think it did. I think Here Comes That Beat. I mean, King of the Beat, I think did about 25,000 if I remember. Here Comes That Beat probably did a little more, but I'd be surprised if it did more than 50,000. I don't think it did. It wasn't. Wasn't that big.
Okay, I tell you those compilations.
A lot of these records were kind of New York hits, and they didn't really travel outside of New York that much. I mean, some did, but most of these records, you'd hear them on the 3 New York radio stations that played rap would play them, and then maybe Philadelphia or something, but they were not national hits. Right.
Yeah, understood.
There were a lot, because you could only go to R&B stations back then. There weren't any rap stations, so it was R&B stations that would play, and some R&B stations would not play rap. They had no rap policies. So so let's say there was a good chunk, half the radio stations or something like that were not playing rap. They were only playing R&B, and then the other half were open to it. So they were only in certain cities where you could get airplay. And there was no internet. So it was either record stores, people could find records in record stores if they were really into it. And every town had its cool record store. And otherwise, if you're lucky enough to have lived in New York, you could hear it on the radio, but a lot of places you couldn't.
Yeah, I'm in Virginia, and I grew up in Virginia. And luckily, those records came out on a Friday in New York. We had them by Monday. And they only played on the late night mix shows. We had a Kiss here in affiliate. Yeah. And they were playing a late night mix show, but not during prime time. So all of those records, AM, PM by Jeckyll, everything profile, we got it, but they weren't big radio hits, like you said.
That wasn't a big radio hit anyway. Some of these records, AM, PM was not a big radio hit.
No, not at all. Underground.
A lot of things, at the beginning, it was all Mr. Magic. Mr. Magic was the whole thing before you could get like you know, Kiss or WBLS or you know, those stations, Mr. Magic was the guy that was breaking all the rap records. I mean, at the, you know, in the like 83, 84, 85, around then. And I'm not sure exactly when BLS finally hired him, because then he went to BLS, but, and he was still very important, more important. But back when he was on WHBI at like 2:00 in the morning on a Saturday night, he still had everybody listening to him. I mean, one of my favorite stories is when we put out Genius Rap. We started the record on Monday. We finished recording it on Friday. I brought him a tape on either Friday night or Saturday night, and he played it once from a tape. And then I went to a record store in Times Square the next day. I didn't say who I was. I just was a kid walking into a record store, and I went to the guy behind the counter and I said, "Do you have that record that's a rap record to Genius of Love?" And the guy goes, oh, Jesus Christ. He goes, "If one more fucking person asked me for that record today, I'm going to shoot myself." And I'm like,
Wow.
Really?
That's great.
I was like, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh my God." He goes, "Everybody's asking for that record. I don't know what the fuck it is." So
That's great.
I didn't say it was my record, and I was just going to see if, like, what kind of reaction I would get. But I remember this day getting the reaction. Like, the guy was angry that I was one more person asking for this record that was played one time on Mr. Magic the night before, and every kid was asking for this record already. So I knew I had a hit. I mean, you know, if that's happening, you got to get these. So by the next week, we had the records in the stores. But, you know, that was great. It was a great.
That's powerful. That
was Mr. Magic. That was one play from Mr. Magic.
That is powerful. The session for Here Comes That Beat was everybody. It was everybody in the same. I know now the way we record, people email their verse in. You can have 20 people on a record. They never got to be in the same place. Was everybody all there at the same time recording Here Comes That Beat?
Well, when we walked up into the studio, if I remember correctly, Jeckyll and Hyde had completed their part already, and they had left or were about to leave, and everybody was in the same session. You know, Greg G was sitting there, Mr. Troy was sitting there.
Yeah,
you know
Disco
what
Four
I'm
was
saying?
there.
You know what I'm saying? And Peso was sitting there. You know what I'm saying? And he was, for what I found out through your interview, was that he always hung out with Pumpkin. You know what I'm saying? So I know Greg G and the Disco Four from Harlem. You know what I'm saying? Watching these brothers, because I lived on 137th Street, 137th and Edgecombe, and Greg lived around the corner off of 8th Avenue. You know what I'm saying? So when I saw these brothers there, I didn't actually, you know them personally, but I knew who they were.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? I knew who they were. I knew these guys are MCs, and I knew they was part of a group, Disco Four. So we sat and waited until Greg G and Mr. Troy finished their parts. And, you know, this, are you guys ready? You was like, yeah. We're waiting on you.
Right.
For you. I think it took us like one take to do our part.
I think it was one.
Yeah, I think it was like one take. It was like, okay, they started the music. We might have did it over just to, you know, get some more feeling in it, but it was
I
like,
remember when we wrote it.
You know what I'm saying? So it was like, we went in there.
We wrote it sitting there, right?
I think we took one of our routines and just sort of flipped it for the occasion. I don't remember. You gotta ask Jay. I wish Jay was just chime in. But anyway, so it took us like one, maybe two takes, and that was that. And we just sat there, you know, and then we did the party noises for the background.
Yeah.
You know, and everybody was in the studio for that. Galaxy, I believe, was there.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out to be an awesome session. You know what I'm saying? Once again, to be around some great people, you know what I'm saying? And here we are. We probably we definitely the youngest artists in the room.
Yes, yes, we were.
You know what I'm saying? And just sit around and watch these brothers do their thing and then be part of it. Once again, it's like, wow.
You know, the great thing about that record, man, and a lot of people don't really, you know, they don't go far back enough. But, you know, we talk about Posse Cuts and we talk about the Symphony and people talk about the Crush Groove joint, but this was the first official Posse Cut ever to have that 3 or 4 different crews on one, you know, going for broke like that. You know, the Crush Grooving song that came out the next year in '85, but you guys predate any of the Posse Cuts. You know, the Juice Crew came later, Symphony came later, and then you had everything else. But this is officially the first.
Hold up, didn't Sugar Hill and Flash do something together?
They did do Showdown.
That's different though. That's different.
Yeah, it was like a play battle almost. They had Showdown.
Okay. Yeah, that's different. That's like a versus type thing. Where they just bounced off each other. Where he's saying a collaborative of different artists on one track, just passing it and moving on to the next person.
Okay.
So yeah,
All right.
I also say that it was the first of its kind where what we were doing was the purpose of that track was actually putting Pumpkin on the map as a producer. So the idea was to, dude would be on stage playing the drums live, but you know, in the studio we would show that he was a producer, and the whole track was built around all of the artists' collaborative efforts of pushing his artistry. So that's also a first too, because nobody else was doing that. No one was getting together to promote one person, and that's basically what that track was for.
It really was. You're right. Later on, they did it for Marley Marl and other people, but not in 84, nobody was doing that kind of thing. So, B, I know you remember that. I think it's been a year or two ago now. I sent you the video. I think it was a guy named DJ Goodcut overseas. The video with you guys doing "Here Comes That Beat." And do you remember where you guys were when Pumpkin was on stage playing the drums and you guys were filming? I think you were doing the verses.
Roxy's. I think they filmed that at Roxy's roller skating ring.
Okay, gotcha.
I think so.
And yeah, it was in Roxy's roller skating ring, and another one of our homes. That every time we went there, we blew it up. Just like Roseland, you know, just like Funhouse. You know? So we was at Roxy's, and when we walked in there, none of the brothers were there, right? And I don't know who was I talking to. I think I was texting with Peso or somebody, and said that nobody knew that they were doing that. And I was like, wow, that's messed up. So that's why you got us lip syncing, you know, everybody's parts. You know what I'm saying? Because either they didn't show up or didn't know that Pumpkin was, you know, had these brothers from overseas wanting to do a video. So that's why we wind up doing everybody's parts. Just, you know, it was like a filler until it was our time to rock. I was hoping that maybe they could have did something else. You know what I'm saying? Since you only have one of the groups here, you know what I'm saying? Don't, you know, show us lip singing everybody's parts, because then when our parts come out, you know what I'm saying? When our parts come out, they're like, who are these dudes? They doing everybody's parts.
Hard enough trying to figure out who the hell we were anyway.
You know what I'm saying? And so,
you just made it extra hard.
People's gonna be like, "Oh, these guys are phonies."
Right,
bro. Because you know, if you remember, Jay, when it came out, somebody had said that these guys were fakes, and I went off. Remember?
I remember that. Yeah.
I went off.
How did you get involved with that? Being that most of these were profile artists, how did you get pulled into that project?
Well, I got pulled into that project. I used to do a lot of stuff with this before with Greg Morris, Ronnie D, Al Cash, which was Al B back then, Cool G, and Troy and Country. And like I said, the Shades of Black, we did a lot of background before. And plus, I was still doing my thing with the Shades of Black. It was the 5 Shades of Black back then. So Greg Morris approached us to approach me take that back, approached me to do a lead vocal on Pumpkin and All Star. And I said, sure. But this was like my first time being on the record, you know what I'm saying? So I was down for it, you know what I'm saying? So that's how that happened.
Okay. So as far as like what you were going to sing, the words and everything, did they give you the creative freedom to write the we had a funky All Stars, the All Stars, music? How did all that come about?
Well,
Was that your idea?
That was all my idea. They just gave me the mic and told me to go. So I went to booth. I mean, as soon as I heard the beat, I mean, that was the first thing that came to my mind. The All Stars need no music. All we need is funky to keep the beat up.
So you didn't write anything down. You just went with what you felt on the beat.
I just went what I felt. Yeah.
Did you already know Pumpkin? Did you have any relationship with Pumpkin before the song?
No, that was the first time I met him. Like I said, I grew up with Dr. Jeckyll, Mr. Hyde, and all those guys. But that was my first time meeting him.
I want to talk a little bit. I know you told me already you didn't remember a lot about it, but tell me what you do remember about Here Comes That Beat, Pumpkin in the Profile All Star. I know it's been a minute. That record was 84, but do you remember at all any of the preliminary stuff, like them coming to you and saying, hey, we're going to do this, write your rhymes, this is the format of the song? Do you remember anything at all about the recording session?
It wasn't even that. It was just like, okay, you're going to do this record, it's got Pumpkin. And I just remember the room being crowded. That's what I remember more than anything. You know what I'm saying? And we were, I believe, I got to look at the record, but we were like the most famous of them all on the record. You know what I'm saying?
No question.
So Andre and I see them going in, and I do remember this. We like went around the block and ate a hamburger or something, or a hot dog. Like, they gonna wait for us. You know what I'm saying? So we come in, and I just remember it being crowded. That's all. But I love like All Stars need no music. All Star. I love that part of it. And then when he threw down, the kick of the beats, I was like, all right, But that's really all I remember. Like, I don't remember we put a lot of effort into it because I don't think we got a lot of money out of it. Like, I remember there was probably some negotiations. Like, yo, we need $2,000 or something. We're going in there. And of course, Profile was like, but we went in there anyway and did our thing. And our DJ Galaxy at the time, George Lotto, who's my man, he did his thing too. You know what I mean? He really did, And that was his first time on a record, So that was kind of cool.
I'm trying to remember my conversation with him. Was that kind of like the premiere of him being you guys' DJ? Was he your DJ before?
Yeah. I don't even remember how we met George. It might have been there.
I think
it might have been when we met him.
Yep.
That might have been when we met him right there. And I know we're gonna talk about those stories too, man. But those are great stories, man. We was on the road, man. Nothing's better than the road. I don't care what nobody says, I don't care what industry you're in, whether it's sports or whatever, people who go on the road together, man. There's a bond there that just never fails,
Oh, I play drums, bass, guitar, piano, synthesizers, everything.